Salutations everybody, it is Maddie here today, and I apologize in advance for my hair. I mean, this guy up here, he's just doing his own thing. He's in his own little world. I tried to wet him down, flatten him, put on a hat, do what I could to look presentable for the camera, but he just wasn't having it, so we're gonna let him be. You may have heard some interesting news surrounding an upcoming Bethesda title over this last weekend. That game being Wolfenstein Youngblood, the co-op driven Wolfenstein game, which I'm quite excited for because this gimmick seems to stand out a lot more than something like the old Blood, which just gave you a green pipe and said, hey, you can climb some walls now and stab some Nazis with this pipe. Isn't that awesome? And over the course of the first half hour, it got worn out pretty fast, despite it being fun because it was more Wolfenstein. But this game actually seems to have a narratively driven purpose to it, and also it actually has a fun new gameplay element that hopefully we'll see in Wolfenstein 3, provided everything for this game pans out. But anyway, the news that caught a lot of folks' attention over this weekend was Bethesda's odd decision surrounding this game on the Switch. So this information comes from GameStop.com. Right on the product page, you can see that once it's listed for the Deluxe edition of $40, that there is no cartridge for this game, and the code will be packed in the box, internet connection required. However, when you head over to Bethesda's site, you can see the questions and answers section says, what is the price of Wolfenstein Youngblood? The Wolfenstein Youngblood Standard Edition is $30. The Wolfenstein Youngblood Deluxe Edition, including the Buddy Pass and the Cyborg skin, is $40. Note the Standard Edition is only available as a digital download across Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. For those of you who don't know, the Buddy Pass is actually a really huge deal for Wolfenstein because pretty much what it does is includes a key that you can give to your friends so that they can download the game and then you can play cooperatively together. So it's something like we saw EA actually do of all companies with A Way Out, where we were able to play that game cooperatively with our friends by buying one copy. Now, as you may have noticed, GameStop mentioned the Deluxe Edition being the one that includes a code, whereas this site is talking about the difference between a Standard Edition only available as a digital download in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. So does that mean that US GameStops are going to get a physical cartridge for that Standard Edition, and then the Deluxe one, because of the Buddy Pass, might just have codes in it? How exactly is all of that going to work? Well, there's this thing that a lot of Switch owners will be familiar with, but for those of you who aren't, is a thing called the Switch tax. Pretty much what it started off as was something that most Switch owners were pretty reasonable with, because making cartridges for the Switch cost more, and it was a way to pretty much avoid UMDs, you know, those things from the PSPs. So essentially what began as a $10 cartridge tax actually ended up being tacked onto the game. You'd start seeing the Switch games get a hyped up price. A great example that caught a lot of attention was actually Resident Evil, which released their games for a substantially higher price than anywhere else they were listed. What I feel Bethesda's doing here is pretty much trying to eliminate the Switch tax by eliminating the cartridge altogether, which is good for everyone because the game stays a little bit cheaper. It stays at that Standard Edition being $30 and the Deluxe Edition being $40 no matter where you shop for this. I know it's a little frustrating as someone who loves their physical media. I totally get it, but once again, this is money in our pocket, and it's actually a consumer-friendly move by Bethesda, which is something that I think should be applauded, even if it comes at the sake of not having a cartridge, which I know some folks would rather have come from Bethesda themselves rather than the GameStop site. I know a lot of folks are like how I used to be, which is you'd get your games, you'd play them to completion, you'd get a bulk of them, resell them, and pick up the newest game you were looking forward to. I totally understand that perspective. In fact, that's how I afforded most of my games throughout my early years in college, as well as throughout all of high school, because I didn't have a job. So trust me, I get where you guys are coming from, but this is actually a smart move on Bethesda's behalf to keep the game in an affordable range and on people's radars, because it's going to be $30. Now, I actually picked up over this last weekend Dragon Ball Heroes, and I thought of how strange it's going to be for those folks who do buy Wolfenstein Youngblood physically, because inside this game package, it actually did come with a cartridge, which is inside my Switch, but as you can see, there's a piece of paper here which says the Hero Edition includes in its downloadable content, and then on the back side, you can actually see there is a code there. And so I was thinking to myself when I opened this after reading this news that that's pretty much what it's going to be like when you get Wolfenstein Youngblood. You're going to have the case, pretend it's Wolfenstein, you're going to pop it open, there's not going to be this here, and you're going to have just the code sitting there. And as someone who's, you know, environmentally friendly, I think it's kind of silly, right? Because you're just putting a bunch of plastic out there and printing papers just for the sake of having a code when you can just throw this all on the digital store. It kind of defeats the purpose of owning the box at all. Why would you do this at all? And I know physical media is going downhill a little bit, but I still think there's folks like myself and many others out there who A, don't have good internet, or B, don't want to just cave into the digital medium. They like their physical properties, and there will always be people like that. And when that starts to go away, you'll still see companies like Limited Run Games step in and make limited physical runs for games that people are really happy about. So anyway, that's what Bethesda's kind of up to with one of their upcoming launches. It's a bit strange, but I wanted to make a video and fully explain it. It's pretty much to avoid this Switch tax, which I think is good for everybody, because when you look at what Capcom did, who's in some good PR light right now because they've been making so many great games, I thought that was a pretty silly move by them to make Resident Evil 4 like what, $30 or $40, something like that. It's crazy. Kudos to Bethesda for trying to avoid the Switch tax, although it's not the most environmentally friendly way. Still good on them, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this latest news in the comments down below. Do fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.